evaluate that and you look at the guys you have, is there any opportunity for, I don't know, someone in that corner room to move over? And maybe specifically, I'm thinking of Jeffrey Okuda, who seems to have that build you can maybe like at safety. Is there a chance you could give him a look there?
You know, I don't think there's going to be any of that. You never rule anything out, but Jeffrey Okuda's an elite corner to be. I mean, he's not right now, but if he continues to work, he will be. So that won't be it. There's always, you know, we always have position flexibility. We try to recruit that way. But right now, I like the group. We just got to figure out who. You remember, we have some guys coming in as well. So we'll see.
Overall, when you look back on the spring, where do you feel like are the biggest steps that this defense was able to take this spring?
I think just being in the system another year and the familiarity and the cumulative repetitions that now they've had with the defense we're running, the different things we're doing, the concepts. I think that that as a unit we've gotten better. We understand it better, and I think every bit you understand it better, you're going to play faster. And I feel like that's what's happened.
One of the biggest questions you still have about the defense, kind of macro questions coming in the summer and then obviously preseason?
Well, I think the position opposite Jordan Fuller is probably the biggest one on defense. I think we have to figure out who the linebackers will be and where, but I feel very confident that there's plenty of talent there and guys that can do it. We just got to figure out what the best positions are for each guy. But yeah, I'd have to say it's opposite Jordan.
You had such a great defensive line last year. You've obviously got players this year. People will think there might be a little bit of a drop-off. What's your view of that?
Well, what we had is we had some really experienced guys, and there's never a substitute for experience. We still have some experienced guys, but not quite as much. We have some talented guys, some young guys that I think as they continue to grow in our program will really become great players. But so yeah, when you lose experience like that, you like to think you can make up for it, but there's going to be a little bit. But I think what we have is really good young players, and our plan is for this thing to go like that at the defensive line.
Hey, Greg, can you, obviously the NFL draft's coming up in a few weeks. With Denzel, can you reflect about, since day one, or just being with him, his trajectory and how, and you know, what you've seen from him and how he put himself in a position to maybe be a top 10 pick this year? Well,
I remember when I first arrived, I guess that first spring, he really performed at a high level. And I really thought the world of his performance. And then remember, he hurt his wrist. And that, you know, I don't think people realize that was a significant thing, and he played through it the entire year. And then last year, I think he developed into a established starter who played at a very high level. And you know, he's really a very, very good NFL prospect. You know, he'll be a very good corner in the NFL.
He's kind of undersized a little bit, I think, or some people think he's a little short.
What did he measure at the combine?
Was it
5'11", I think.
5'11", 5'10 and a half, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, regardless, I think that he had a lot of people telling him that, whether it's true or not. I guess from an attitude standpoint and a talent standpoint, what did you know? Did you know immediately that he was special, and how do you identify a player like that early on in his career, knowing that this could be the end result?
Well, I did. Like I said, you know, that first spring, I thought he performed at a high level, and I guess when you do it for a number of years that I have, you've been around enough of the great ones that you say, oh, this kid could be a great one. And I think he is. I think he's going to have a fantastic NFL career. Incredibly hard worker on and off the field, and if he's deemed to be a little short, I'm sure he'll make up with it with his speed and his vertical jump and his timing, and you know, I think he's as skilled as anyone that's coming out this year.
When you're in those NFL rooms trying to decide who you want to draft and the guy maybe doesn't fit into the parameters of what people would consider the normal size for a position, like how do those conversations go? What are the things you look for that can maybe take you beyond that and not have lack of size or perceived lack of size come into play?
Well, everybody's a little different, right? But you know, when you're talking about Denzel, so maybe he's a half an inch short. Okay, I get that. If he's 5'8", that's a different story, right? You know, people say, why? Why? Well, that much. You know, when balls get caught by that much and they're touchdowns, that's how seasons are decided. So every inch counts. But I think you have to take into account his ability to track the ball, ability to jump, his arm length, all those things, because they're not cookie cutter. You know, a 6-foot guy, well, a coverage radius of a 5'10" guy may be greater just the way he's proportioned. You don't know. That's why they do so much in-depth physical discovery on these guys to gather all the information they can. So when you're sitting in the room, if there's a guy who's way below your quote-unquote standards, then you really got to be careful, because, you know, Coach Parcells said it a long time ago. He says you start taking exceptions, pretty soon you look out on the field and you see a team full of exceptions. So you got to stick. You have to have the discipline to stick to your draft strategy. But what happens sometimes, if a guy can do something extraordinarily well, and then maybe one of his other skill sets, AE height, is a little less, you might be able to talk your way into that. But he's got to have exceptional abilities in some other area.
Greg, when you back in the good old days when you picked a quarterback, was it anguish? Did you hope one would just assert himself more than the other? Just as a head coach, I mean, how much of a, pardon the expression, the gut check aspect of it is, and how much does it keep you up at night?
Well, those are big decisions for the head coach, because the quarterback is a key part of any organization, but especially at this elite level of college football and certainly in the National Football League. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes you go as your quarterback goes, all other things being equal. So, yeah, it's a huge decision, and it's one that, like any position, you'd love for it to just spell itself out. That's easy. Yeah. But that doesn't always happen. And as a head coach and when you work with your offensive staff, those are tough decisions.
Well, when you're making those decisions, like, do you worry about how the other guy's going to feel? You know what I mean? When you, because I would think you have a relationship with all these guys.
Well, you know, you're asking me in a hypothetical sense.
Yeah, exactly. Because you've done it.
I've done it, but I know what you're alluding to, and I think the best thing in those situations, and I always felt, is you only had one person talking about that, and that was the head coach. And I don't mean to duck your question, but I have dealt with it. You're right. But I don't have to deal with it right now, so I'm going to let Coach deal with it.
Hey, real quick, what is the number one thing that caught your eye about your defense that, I don't know, you got better at, you worse at, whatever you want to call it, through this spring? What did you see change about this defense, or get better, whatever you want to call it?
Well, I think they really, going through it another cycle, much better understand the scheme. We played faster because of that. We're still not there by any means, but you measure improvement incrementally, and we're getting better, and you just got to keep getting better.